Hey guys, welcome back to the second video in the beginner Excel tutorial series, and today we're going to be focusing on basic functions. So these will be a bunch of different functions, but we're not going to cover ifs or VLOOKUP or any of those kinds of indexing, and they're called like logical functions because they're a bit more complicated and I don't want to make this video too long. That being said, we're going to talk a little bit more about ranges, do what I called, ranges revisited, look at kind of basic formulas, and then we're going to take a look at formulas with numbers as well as cell references, move on to Excel's built-in formulas, and then we're going to look at nested formulas before we talk about referencing, a little bit of conditional formatting, and then we're going to end with a nice little challenge problem. As was the case with my first video, for this tutorial, I'm actually going to put the spreadsheet I'm working on in the description, so now would be a good time if you want to take a second to go download that. I'd really recommend it and follow along as I do stuff, just because it'll make it a lot easier to learn. So with that out of the way, let's get to it. So I kind of mentioned previously in my last video, and there'll be a link for the playlist in the description, that there's cells in Excel, and that's kind of the basic unit, and then there's ranges, and a range is just a whole bunch of cells together. So if we go to the spreadsheet really quick, I'm just going to type in some numbers. It can be anything, and I'm just going to go straight down, press enter. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 5. Okay, and so we have a range right here, and if I go shift up arrow key and just select all of it, this is a range, but it doesn't really have anything special to it. If I were to put this into a formula, it would just be, F5 to F9. But what you can do is to kind of circumvent that and make it a little easier, you can go up to the left and press this down arrow and then name the range something. So for this, I'm just going to name it numbers. And I wanted to cover this because name ranges are something that make using Excel a lot easier. And so like the example for that is I'll put another set of numbers in over here, right? And it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we'll go up here and do the sum of these numbers. We'll talk a little bit more about how to do that in a second, but if you go down and just select it, select these cells, you just get H5 colon H9, right? But if you were to go over to F4 and do the same thing and do sum, but then instead of typing in the range, you just type in numbers, you get the range, and you're able to put it in, and now you have like a more meaningful name for the range, which is why it's called a named range. Now, you don't always want to use a named range, especially for like really quick things. Named ranges don't necessarily make sense, but if you're using like a file format where you always have, the names are in the first column, the addresses are in the second column, whatever, it makes a lot of sense, and it's a lot easier to use. So with that kind of out of the way, we'll just talk for a second about basic formulas. So a formula is just taking two numbers, two or more numbers, or it could even be one. It's taking numbers in Excel and doing something with them. And there's a lot of different stuff you can do with them, but the way that you go about doing a formula in Excel is you go to a cell and you type in equals. And then this equals tells Excel that you want to do a formula. And then you can just do whatever you want with it. So you can use it almost like a calculator where you can do like 5 plus 1 and then hit enter, you'll get 6. And when you are looking at a formula and you want to know what's inside of it, you can press F2 and it will tell you what the formula is. You can also do, if you want to do divide, it's 5 divided by 1, okay, 5, and then for multiplication, it's the asterisk, which is shift 8, and we'll do 5 times 4 is 20, and that's kind of the basics of it. Now, right here, I'm just doing numbers times numbers, and what you can also do is you can do cells, so you can choose a cell in the workbook. So say we want to add 1 and 2, so we're going to hit while equals still in the cell, we're going to go over and click this, and then press plus, and then put F6, and you can also type it in, so I can type in F6. Or I can type in F6, and then if I want to add another one, I can type in F7. And it still works. And you can press F2, and when you do this, it tells you what cells are in it. Now you can also mix it where you can write in a number 2. So if I want to take these and then add 1 to it, that also works. Now the next thing to keep in mind with all of the Excel formulas is that they're dynamic. So you can have just cells, just numbers, you can have cells and numbers interacting, but you can also move the equation into a new cell, and it'll move those cell references. So it doesn't make a lot of sense at first, but you'll kind of see what I'm talking about when I do it. So if I just hit Control C, so copy, and then go down one cell and hit Control V, you're going to see I get a different value, and that's because if you go and hit F2, you'll see that the cells that it's using are shifted down one, and that's because I shifted the equation down one. Now this is something that is really nice about Excel, but it's also something you need to be cognizant of, and when you're making a worksheet or doing something, you just want to be aware that it's there. With that kind of out of the way, we're going to move on to kind of the next tab, which I have called Simple Maths, and we're going to start getting into a little bit of kind of some of the Excel formulas, so some of the basic ones. So here's just a basic addition, subtraction, multiplication, division table. So as I mentioned earlier, if you want to do a formula, you go in it to the cell you want to use, and you type equals, and then like we're doing 10 plus 9, so I could do 10 plus 9, or it's a lot better if I go and do select this cell, so C3, and then plus E4, and hit enter, and we get the same answer. Now, what you can do is to make it faster, because we want to do this same operation a bunch of times, you can go Control C, and then go Shift and down, and then go Control V. And now you'll see we have the answers for the correct answer for each one. So if you go F2 and enter, you'll see that we're doing the addition that we want to. But you're going to notice that right here, we have these lines, and the formatting of this is kind of messed up. So when you do Control C, Control V, it copy and pastes everything about that cell to the other cells. So for example, here I actually have the formatting from the top one being copied down. And that's not something that we want, so I'm going to hit Control Z to undo it all. Oh yeah, there we go. And now what we're going to do is we're going to do what's called special pasting. And the way you do that is once you have the range selected that you want to paste to, the cells that you want to paste to, you press the right click button, and then you go to Paste Special and select Formulas. And when it does this, it pastes just the formula and it doesn't mess up the formatting. So we hit OK, and now it looks nice and pretty the way it did before. Now there's another way to also do this. So instead of using pluses, we can use one of Excel's built-in functions, which is sum. And sum add things together. So the way you do it, and this is kind of the fast way to do it, and what I'd recommend is you start typing in, you go equals, and then you start typing in a formula, and Excel will give you all the choices of what you can do, and you can cycle through them with your up and down arrow key. Now when you find the function you want to use, if you hit tab, it fills it in for you. So like, especially when we get into some of the longer formulas, it's a lot faster and easier to just type in, you know, if it's average, you go AV, and then you choose which one you want to use. So the way these work is you put in cells, and then you separate them with commas. So the first thing we want to sum is C4, and then we'll do comma, and then E4. And then we're going to close parentheses, hit enter, and do the same thing, Control C, and then since we already have the range set up, you can go Shift Control down, and then right click, Paste Special, and then do formulas, and boom. So now we're going to move on to multiplication. Multiplication is kind of the same way, and you can either do it where you go equals and then this cell times this cell, or, in which if you hit enter you'll get the right answer, or you can go in and get rid of that and type in product, and then choose, and then choose this cell, and then do comma, this cell. So I4, comma, K4, and then enter. Now the reason you do this and why you want to use product and sum over just adding is that when you get with more, when you have bigger sets, so say if you want to multiply 5 numbers together, it can get pretty easy to confuse what's going on. And when you use product, it really cuts down a lot on what's going on. So you'll see that more in the next tab, but it's just one of those things that I'd recommend doing because ultimately it makes it harder to make mistakes and it makes your workbooks work a lot better. So now you press enter and you go Control C and Shift down, and so you select all the cells you want to, and then you go right click, Paste Special, Values. Oh, shoot, that was a mistake, sorry. So Control Z, everyone makes mistakes. You go right click, Paste Special, Formulas. And now we'll just check, and you go F2, enter, F2, enter, F2, enter, and you'll see that it is doing the correct operation for all of them. So subtraction, there's not actually, as far as I know, there's no way to subtract stuff with a formula, so you have to just do it manually, where you do, or there's no like Excel built-in function for it, so you do 10, and then minus, and then 9. So C12 minus E12. Very similar to before, and then you Control C, Shift down, and then you go right click, Paste Special, Formulas. And then division is very similar to subtraction, where there's not like a division formula. So you go equals, and then we're going to go I12 minus K12. And you hit enter, and you get 1, which is correct. One thing to keep in mind with division is it will, a lot of times it'll just, oh sorry, that was a mistake on my part, sorry. I did subtraction, not division. So we'll do division, and now we'll get the decimal point. But one thing that's worth keeping track of is you can actually have the right answer, but have it formatted weird so that you can't see it. So with division, just keep in mind that if I say get rid of all the decimal points, it looks like it's 1, but it's really 1.11 repeating. So just something to keep in mind. But now we'll do Control-C, Shift arrow key down, and then paste special and paste formulas. So we're starting to make some pretty good progress here, and you can kind of see there's a few different ways to do anything, and this next tab in formulas will kind of see why you want to use, first off, name ranges, but also why you want to use formulas over just doing this cell plus this cell plus this cell. So on the left here we have a little table of some workers' salaries, and we want to find out the total of these salaries. So this is where it gets kind of hard, where if you want to do equals, this plus C14 plus the next one plus, it gets pretty long, and you can see that you're going to have a formula that is going to be, the formula up here is going to be like really long, like maybe out to around where my cursor is now, and it's going to be kind of hard to see what's going on. So we're going to go in here and right click, and we're going to clear the contents, and it's a lot easier if you go equals sum, and then you can choose this entire range, and then do parentheses to close and hit enter, and now it makes sense. And now you get the sum of the salaries. Now, if you want to take it one step further, a really good way to do it is you select the whole range, and you go in the bottom cell and go Shift Control up. You don't want salaries, so you hold down the arrow key once while you have Shift still held. And if you go up to the left-hand corner and press this arrow, you can name the range. So we're going to name it worker salaries. So now we're going to go and we're going to clear the total again. And what we're going to do is we're going to hit enter, and then we're going to do sum, and we're going to select it and hit tab, and then we're going to do workers salaries. So just like how the formulas come up and you can choose from them, the worker salaries comes up as a named range. So you use the down arrow key to get to it and hit tab, and you can see that it's a lot faster than selecting the range. And then you hit the parentheses to close, and you're done. And you see that we get the same answer. Now for the average, there's actually two ways. There's like 3 ways to do that. One thing you're going to see in Excel is there's actually a lot of ways to do different stuff, and that's something that you should always be aware of. And you're always trying to find kind of the fastest or most efficient way to do it. So you're going to hit equal, and then what you can do is the average is the total divided by the number of values. So one way you could do it is you go and you select this cell, C16, and then divide it by what's called count. And count tells you how many values there are in an array. So it doesn't tell you what the sum of them is, it just tells you how many there are. So if we do count and then divide it or we take C16, the total, and divide it by the count of the worker salaries array, or worker salaries name range, once again typing it in and going down to tab to choose it, and then parentheses to close, we get the average salary. Now there's also an Excel function called average, so we'll put it next to it just to compare it, but if you do equals average, and then we go down and choose tab to select it, and then type in worker salaries, once again hit tab to select it, then you get the average, and you'll see that it's the same number. And that's good because it should be the same one, but I want to talk for a second in this C17 cell that when you press F2, you can kind of see this is what I would call a nested function, where you have two functions working together, and really it's two. It's a cell reference working with a function, but you could type in here instead of this, we could say, okay, we want, sum of worker salaries divided by count of worker salaries. And this is one thing to keep in mind, is you're not limited to just put one formula inside of a cell. You can actually have multiple formulas working together, and that's something to really keep in mind. So that being said, we'll clear this out because we don't want it. Right click and go down to clear. So this is similar to the previous one, except for we're going to add in standard deviation. But what you do is you go, we're going to create a named range for the scores. Now later on in future videos, we'll talk about how you would look up the score of a student based on, say, like an ID number, but that's something that's a little bit more of an advanced topic we'll get to later. So if you go Control up, and then you select this range, so Control Shift down, and then you go up to the left corner and press the little arrow, we can type in student scores and hit enter. And we'll do the same down here. We'll type equals count, and then tab to select, and then student scores, tab, parentheses, and then that will tell you the number of students, and it says 12, which is correct. Then we'll do the average, which is going to be equals average, tab, student scores, tab, close parentheses. And then we can do the standard deviation. And then we get standard deviation by typing in equals standard dev, and we want standard dev.p, and you press tab to select, and then we type in student scores, tab, and parentheses. So you can see that this is there's a lot of power in Excel formulas, and we're going to move on here and look at some more nested formulas and some more what I would call like advanced formulas. And this is really where you want to be spending your time to get good, because this is when you can take Excel sheets kind of to the next level. So what we're doing here is we're looking at 3 classes, and we're going to see how many students there are in each class, and then find the grand total of all of those. And we're going to do it first the slow way, and then second the fast nested formula way. So we're going to go down and create these named ranges. So we'll do Control Shift down, and we'll name this up here. We'll name it Class A, and then we'll go down here and we'll name this Control Shift down. We'll go up here and name it Class B. Enter. And then we'll go down to Class C, and we'll select this and go Class C, and hit enter. So now we have Class A, Class B, and Class C, and we could do subtotals here and go equals sum, select, and then we'll do Class A, go enter, and then we'll tab over, and we'll go equals sum. Oh, sorry, that was a mistake on my part. We want to do, instead, we'll go F2, and we'll delete this when we go equals count, and then tab, Class A, and then we'll go tab equals count, tab, Class B, tab, and then we'll tab over, and we'll go equals count, Class C. So now we're going to do kind of 2 ways to figure out the grand total of this. So one way is you go equals sum of, and then we're going to go and just select this range, E4 to G4, and now we get the total number of students in all 3 classes, which is 39. Or you could do a faster way where we have a nested formula. So we're going to go over here, and we're just going to we're going to write a formula that skips all these. So what we want to do is we want to add together each of these. So the last thing we want to do is add, so that's the first formula. We're going to go equals sum, and then we're going to tab over, and we want to do count of A, B, and C. So we'll do count, tab, and then Class A, and then we'll do comma. So what you can see here is you can actually have the value that count spits out as one of the numbers we're putting in the sum. And then we're going to do count, tab, Class B. Oh, sorry, that was a mistake. Well, we need to do Class C anyways. So comma, and then we'll do count, tab, Class B. And so now we're going to go ahead and close that parenthesis, and boom, we get the same answer. Now here's one thing to keep in mind, which is it's one of the advantages of doing these nested functions is that you don't have to worry about the functions that feed into it. So for example, for this guy, if we go in and press F2, if a mistake is made in this cell, so let's say we delete it, you're going to get a lower number than what's actually there. So it's really helpful to make sure you're actually, and I'm going to Control Z back, you're actually getting the information you want. Now a good way to get around this is you can use what's called it's track precedence, I think is what it's called. But if you go up to the tabs and go to formulas, you can go to trace precedence. And what this tells you is if you have a certain cell selected, it can tell you what cells it gets information from, which is really helpful when you get to having more complex equations. Or formulas. So if you go into this, we're in F3 and we go to trace precedence, it has arrows that show where the values it's coming from are. So we see that feeding into 39 are these cells, and then if we want to see what these guys have for precedence, we can go in and do the same thing. So I'll select this cell, and go trace precedence, and then trace precedence, trace precedence. And so you can see that it's feeding into there. Now I'm going to go in and hit remove arrows, which clears it out. And we're going to go into and this is, I'll just press F2 to show it again, but this is the kind of fast way to do it where we skip the middle step. And if you press trace precedence, you're going to see that it feeds it directly in. So this is just a good way if you're ever wanting to check how a formula is working. Another thing you can do, and we're going to go up here and press remove arrows again, is you can select a cell and then go trace dependence. And what it tells you is where the information from that cell is being referenced and what cells are referencing it. It's just a good thing to always keep in mind, and it's something that, and we're going to hit remove arrows to get rid of, but it's something I recommend doing, especially when you get a new spreadsheet you might not understand. So we're going to go to reference formulas now, and basically I talked a little bit about how when you do references, you can, when you create these formulas that reference cells, as you copy and paste the formula around, the formula references move, or the cell references move. That being said, you need to be careful about it because, as I'm about to show you, if you're not using them properly, it can lead to you making a lot of mistakes. So we're going to type in equals here, and we're making a multiplication table, right? So we want to do 0, and then we're going to do times 0, which is going to be E6. Now we see that's right. So if we do Control C, and then we go and Shift arrow key down, Shift arrow key right. Now we have the whole range selected, and we're going to go right click. Oh, we're going to go right click, paste special, formulas, and you'll see that you actually get 0 for every answer, and that's not right. So if you go F2, 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 because in reality, when we're in this cell, we want it to be 6 times 7, but it's actually 0 times 0. So what we want to do is we want it to be that this number, the F5, is moving along the column, or along the row but not the column, and we want the E6 to be moving along the column but not the row. And we do that by what's called locking. And you can do locking by using a $sign. And what the $sign does is it locks a cell reference in a column or a row. So if we do, and you cycle through these by either typing in the $sign directly, or you can use F4, which I recommend. So if you press F4 once, it completely locks it. So when the $sign's in front of a letter or a number, it means that it's locked in that direction. So if I press E6 as well, and just press F4, you'll see that now it's locked. So F2, that's the formula, and we're going to go and just Control C, Shift Control, write down, right click, paste special formulas. You're going to see that if we go into a random sum, press F2, it's not moving. So we're getting closer, but the way we want to do it is we want to lock it so that, like I said before, this cell is moving down the columns, down the row but not across columns, and this is moving across columns but not down rows. I think I might have said that incorrectly earlier, but I think you get the idea of what this chart is supposed to look like. So once you have that done, the next thing you can do is you select this cell reference, and then you press F4 again. And now we're getting closer, but we want it to be able to not move in E, but move in the numbers. So we press it again, and now it's set up where this part of the table should work correctly. So we're going to hit Enter just to demonstrate it, and go Control C, Control Shift, write down, right click, paste, special, paste formulas. So now we're starting to get somewhere where if you go to say this cell, you'll see that it's showing 4 times 0, so it's halfway there. Now the way we fix the other cell is we go in here and we go F2 again, and we want this F5 to move with the letters but not the numbers, so we press F4 again, and now it should work. So we're going to go Control C, and then we're going to go Shift Control, write down, right click, and paste special formulas. And now, ta-da, it should work. If you go in and press F2, you'll see that it's moving correctly in each of these, in each of the columns and the rows. So this guy's moving side to side on columns but staying in the same row, and this guy's moving up and down on rows but staying in the same column. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to focus on probably a simpler problem. I probably did this in the wrong order, but we're going to talk about Fibonacci, do a quick Fibonacci number thing. So Fibonacci numbers it's just a series of numbers where it's the current number is equal to the last number plus the number from 2 ago. So the way it works is you can actually do this in Excel very easily with cells, and what we're going to do is in these two cells we're going to create the term number and the value and then just copy and paste down. So what I said was it's the sum, so we're going to equal sum of the last number, and then we're going to go comma and the number from 2 ago. And then we'll go over to here, and we want the term to just be one more. So what you can do is you can just press enter and then go select the cell plus 1. So since these are the correct formulas, we're just going to control C both of them, and then we're going to go shift, copy and paste down. So one thing to note is if you have formulas in given columns, when you copy and paste down a range, it will keep each formula in its own column. So we'll do just Control V because we don't need to worry about the formatting, and we'll actually go and select all of this, and actually we'll use the format painter, so we'll select these two guys and then format paint all these guys down. But you see that you get the right Fibonacci sequence. So with that out of the way, we're going to focus a little bit on conditional formatting, which is something I kind of talked about at the beginning, and then we're going to get on to the challenge problem. So conditional formatting is where you just take a group of cells that have different values in them, and you can do them with text, but it's usually numbers is what you're doing. And the way that it's formatted, the way that it's colored is dependent on what the number is in the cells. So the way you do it in Excel is you take a range that you want to do it on, and you select it, and then you go up here to conditional formatting. So we're going to take this multiplication table and select all of it. You do Control Shift right down if you wanted to do it with keyboard. Then you go up to conditional formatting, pull it down, and we're going to look at color scales. And what these do is they change the value of the cell, or the color of the cell based on its value. So you can do a lot. It has to do with like whether or not the number is big or not, but you can see there's a lot of different choices. I'm going to choose this one because I want the numbers to get bigger as we get close to the maximum of the range. But you can see that it's very nifty. It looks really nice, but it's a really easy thing to do. We're actually going to go over here and do the same with these values, and if it's the same thing where you just go select the entire range. So we'll go Control Shift down, then you go to conditional formatting. And another nice thing is data bars, which is it puts a bar in the number for the size of the value, and these are always relative to the max and min within the range that you selected. So we'll just choose this guy. But it also looks really good. These are great for charts. They look really good in PowerPoint slides if you bring it over to that. And then we'll do also average temps. So it's the same thing. You go Control Shift down, and these are some values. There's nothing to do here. It's just a fun way to kind of play with these different types of charting. And you go down and we can do color scales again, or you can do top 10% gets a certain color. There's a lot of different choices here, and it's really fun to play with them. I recommend giving it a look, but let's do blue and red, where red is higher and blue is lower. But you kind of get the idea. You select the range you want to use, and it has to be numbers. So like if I type in here like hey, it becomes white because it only works for numbers. So we're going to hit Control Z, but you should get the idea of how that works. Now let's say you want to change the color of this from one of the base ones. You select the range, and then you go up to conditional formatting, manage rules, and you select the color, and you go okay, and then oh sorry, I messed that up. So you go and select this range, and then you go up to conditional formatting, manage rules, and then you go edit rule, and then choose a new color. So you choose like say red or whatever you want, and hit OK and apply. Now if you want to get rid of it, you select again conditional formatting, and you go clear rules, and you can clear them from just the selected cells, or you can clear them from the entire spreadsheet. So now we're going to move on to the final challenge problem that I decided to include, and we're going to be looking at just something that's a little more advanced. We're going to be taking a look at the super fun quadratic formula, which you might remember from high school, but basically we're just going to figure out the two roots, and the one root is this plus this, and the second root is this minus this. And what we'll do is we're just going to type in the coefficients and then figure out the roots. So the coefficient for the first one, the form of this is y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. So it's a equals 1, and then we'll go enter, b equals 5, and then c equals negative 10. So root 1 is going to be equal to, and then we're going to interpret this so it's minus b, so minus b, and then we're doing, this will be plus, and then to do a square root, you do square root tab, we'll do b, and then we'll do to the power of 2, and then you go minus 4 times a times c. Or it might be better to do product, and then you're going to choose that tab, and then we'll go 4 comma a comma c, and now we'll close that up with 2 parentheses, and now we have the numerator. So what we're going to do is, maybe it would even be better to, instead of having it be this plus this, we'll do sum. So we'll type in sum of negative f16, and then comma square root, and so this is the numerator, and then we'll do divided by, so that's the slash, and then 2 times a, and we'll get the answer. And now what we're going to do here is, the second part's actually pretty simple because we're going to be just taking the negative one, so the negative root. So what we'll do is we'll press F2, or the root where it's minus b minus the second part of the numerator, and we'll just lock all of these cells in place with F4 because we don't want them to move. So we go F4 lock, F4 lock, F4 lock, F4. So now if we do Control C down, right click, paste special formulas, you should get the same answer, and we don't, so I made a mistake, and it's that up here, if you press F2, I didn't lock this cell. So you hit enter, and then we'll do Control C, right click, paste special formulas, enter, so we get the same answer, and then we'll go F2, and we want to change the square root to negative, or put a negative sign in front of it, and we should get the correct answer. And I'm just going to put parentheses around this because I might be messing that up, but it should be fine. And yeah, that's kind of it. This is kind of the point of, and this is a more advanced thing, so if it's a little tough to do this, I'd recommend just giving it a shot and then coming back to it. But this is kind of the point of nesting functions, and it's kind of just to show you the power of the kinds of things you can get done in Excel once you get your head around how you're supposed to do formulas. With that being said, thanks for watching, and we should be coming out with another video pretty soon, and it'll be in the playlist, and the next topic we're going to be covering is making charts. So have a great day, and thanks for watching.